Hello everyone, and welcome to our lesson on timing considerations. Okay, these are things that are kind of important when you're thinking about you're starting your business, you're starting your project, your company, whatever. Okay, so first off, recall that entrepreneurism starts with and revolves around an opportunity. Okay, and an opportunity then presents itself as a solution to a problem. The entrepreneurial process, it starts with discovery. Okay, this is where you're discovering something. Well, that discovery stage helps to reveal opportunities by finding voids in the marketplace and where the market is underserved. The discovery stage uncovers where existing products and services can be improved, or it imagines a whole new way of doing things. So what all does the discovery stage ultimately determine? Really, if your idea satisfies a want or a need in the marketplace, that's it. The discovery stage determines this. Does your idea satisfy a want or a need in the marketplace? Now, here's the thing to remember though. An idea becomes an opportunity if it has three features, okay? These three features, okay? One is a market. Is there a market for my idea? Okay, I've got to change colors here. Is there a market for my idea? Will a sizable amount of people part with their hard-earned money to purchase what you're selling? And in your market analysis, you need to learn everything about your competitors, their products, their pricing, how they promote and they sell their products. Next is margin. Okay, can I sell it for more than it costs me to produce it? And will I earn enough margin to fund and grow and sustain my business? Third is your mission. Will society benefit as a result? Will I create jobs, hire people? Will customers benefit in some way? Like, will my product help them to be more productive? Will the world be better as a result of this venture? If you can think about each one of these things, your opportunity, your idea becomes an opportunity if it has those three features. Remember that. Now, as you're doing it, you got to think about a self-assessment. You got to self-assess not only yourself, but your team as well. So what does it include? So it includes thinking about, do you and your team have the traits and the skills of successful entrepreneurs? What are your strengths and your weaknesses, both of you and your team? And remember, being an entrepreneur is much more than a lifestyle. It is a career. Are you and your team prepared to sign up for countless hours to work to make your venture a reality? So now let's talk about something called bootstrapping and how valuable it is for startups. So bootstrapping is about being resourceful above all else. Not only does it save you money, but it also helps you be creative and to help innovate. When you have those limited resources, you have no choice but to solve your problems without money. And it's in those moments, those times, that you find out that you really want it badly enough. So continuing on talking about bootstrapping. The money is indeed helpful later in the process to help grow your company and build your business, but only after you figured out how to solve your problem and have paying customers to confirm that you are on the right track. Bootstrapping can be a source of some of your most creative solutions. If you can make it through the early phases of your venture while being smart about money and resources, that combination is usually what is attractive to future investors, as capital often finds its way to good solutions. Now, why is it important to consider timing when rolling out a new product? Okay, so consider this, okay? Have you ever heard the expression, the early bird gets the worm? Or have you heard the expression, the second mouse gets the cheese? Presumably because the first mouse got trapped, right? So the second mouse gets the cheese rather than the first one, okay? So in business, there are something called first movers and there are second movers. These are sometimes called fast followers or just followers. So an advantage of a first mover is that they are being the first to the significant player or the occupant in a certain market segment. This allows them to gain that market share first. Now, however, a second mover advantage occurs when when a company follows the lead of the first mover. They learn from their mistakes and from customers' reactions, and maybe they offer something better, something more innovative. So here's some examples of first movers. Think about these companies: Coca-Cola, Uber, Kleenex, Amazon, eBay. Those are all first movers in their industries. But what about second movers? Well, here's some examples of second movers. Okay, Facebook, Spotify, Airbnb, Lyft, Netflix, Google, Nike. Okay, those are all second mover companies. Google was the 11th search engine to hit the market. Before that, there was Webcrawler, there was Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, which is now Ask.com. There was InfoSeek, among others. So the question then comes, is it better to be a first mover or a second mover? Well, second mover, okay, many people think that if you are the first to the market, like that early bird, that your chances for success are greater. Coke, for example, they were a first mover. They've dominated the market for over 100 years. However, statistically, second movers are the ones who end up being successful. So let's talk about some advantages that first movers have, okay? They get to make the first impression. That leads to brand recognition and loyalty, which can lead to early market share gains. They also have the time to refine their products before they take them to market. Second movers have to be faster, have to go faster, and to be fast followers to beat the other second movers. First movers can secure certain supplier relationships, and it often costs a lot for customers to switch their businesses to a second mover once they are established as with that first mover. These are called switching costs. This is the cost associated with changing suppliers, for example. What about the disadvantages of being a first mover that become then advantages of a second mover? Well, first movers spend a lot of money educating consumers about their product, and second movers can exploit this for their benefit. First movers often spend time and energy defending against their position versus advancing it. Second movers can spend less money, less time, because they're learning from the mistakes of those first movers. Second movers can also point out the weaknesses of the first mover in their advertising. And second movers can essentially mimic the first mover's idea and focus on the innovation that makes it different or better. All right, so let's give you a little extra bonus here, talking about first movers and second movers. There's something called the technology or innovation or the product adoption lifecycle. Okay, so this is also known as the product adoption lifecycle. Okay. So essentially, what this is that this life cycle is the sociological model that describes the adoption or the acceptance of a new product or a new innovation according to the demographic and psychological characteristics of defined adopter groups. Okay, there's these 5 stages. There's the innovators. These are your first movers. These are the ones who innovate that create the product. All right. Next are the early adopters. These are the ones who take that idea from the innovator and then they build upon it. Next is the early majority, followed by the late majority, and then there are the laggards. So this is called bridging the gap or crossing the chasm is another phrase that is used when it goes from those early adopters into the early majority, when the majority of people tend to get in on the product. Then, of course, you've got the late majority, now the laggards. Now, Simon Sinek once said that these laggards, these are the people who the only reason that they bought a touch-tone phone is because they don't make rotary phones anymore. But anyway, so I encourage you to do a little bit of research on this product adoption life cycle, technology or innovation or product adoption life cycle. And that is essentially our lesson for today. We're talking about timing considerations when you are starting your business.